Hello, and welcome to the Green Team of the Legendarium, the weird little spin-off podcast where patrons of the Legendarium talk about the books and topics the main crew hasn't gotten around to yet. I'm Little Red Book, and this is our second installment of Red Reads Romance with the Green Team couples. The last appearance was over a year ago, but I have with me a couple who is finally here to help me make fetch happen. Tonight, I have with me a dealer of death. Not that I'm bitter or anything. Ashaman.
Hello.
And our resident psychopomp, Lady Ash.
Hi.
We're going to be discussing Beguilement by Lois McMaster Bujold. She is an award-winning author with books from Reconquista Spanish fantasy to speculative sci-fi with genetically engineered four-armed humans. And here we have an honest-to-God romance from one of my favorite authors. Before we get all spoilery, how would you rate this book on a 1 to 5 star scale?
So, yeah, I'll go first here. Okay, I want to make it very clear before I start saying anything. I think this book is well written. I think that it definitely succeeds at what it sets out to do. I think it checks all the boxes that could be checked off for a romance book. And I think it's well paced. I think it's a good length. And I like the amount. I like the subtle world building that is done, and I like how Lois Bujold does a lot of things here. But yeah, reading this book, like, it just felt like the entire time it's just like, wow, this was not written for me.
I mean, that's fair. It probably wasn't.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like, that's fine. That's totally fine. Bujold has her audience, obviously, right? And so, like, if I was to rate it as, like, a romance book that I would recommend to people who read romance books and I think they would like it, I'd probably call it, like, a 5 out of 5. For me, like, probably, like, a 3 out of 5. I didn't hate it. I generally enjoyed it. But like, a lot of the times I was reading, it's just like, boy, this sounds like someone is going to enjoy it very much, and that person is that's just not me. There's just nothing. There's nothing going on here.
I got a lot of messages from him saying the same thing while he was reading it too. It's just like, wow, it's a good book, but definitely not for me.
How about you?
I adored it. It was amazing. Like, I haven't read, like, many books in the last few years. I'm not enjoying reading for whatever reason. But, like, it took me a little bit to get into it, but as soon as I got into it, I finished that book in a week, and I haven't done that in so long. I was like, oh my god, this is so amazing, and Dag is so sweet, and dreamy, and I'm like, falling over myself for this man. It was so good. 5 out of 5. I would recommend this to everyone. I've recommended it to, like, a few people already, and I just loved it. I loved it so much.
Yeah, when she was reading it next to me on the couch, she was always just, like, giggling and smiling, I think, the entire time.
I squealed a few times.
Well, I squealed when I found out that the reception was well received, because I always am a little nervous. There's a pretty large age gap, and some people are really bothered by that. So this is a 4 for me. She doesn't normally write romance. It's a very well written romance. Most of her books deal with a lot of other things, and it's not my favorite series by her. My favorite is The Five Gods. But as far as just high quality writing, I still think it's a 5 star. It's doing what it set out to do, and she has, as a romance book, it's definitely a 5 star book. Personally preference, it's a 4 star for me, because I generally don't read romance.
You restrict yourself to Dude, Where's My Shirt?
I mean,
what?
I do occasionally read them. I do. And this is kind of in spots a little dude, where's my shirt?
Kind of, yeah.
That's
actually.
it's like a once or twice a year thing for me as opposed to a regular habit. Like every once in a while, dude, where's my shirt?
Dude, where's my shirt? Where'd it go? I'm stuck on a cover.
Lady
with
Ash, do
maybe
you
an
have any
attractive
idea
woman.
what we're talking about?
I really don't. I'm so confused right now.
You go into a bookstore and there's lots of romance novels and the dude does not have a shirt on the cover. So
that's
dude,
where's my shirt?
Yeah.
And you know exactly what you're getting into.
You know exactly who it's for. It's just, I mean, like you get the same with like different like anime characters and stuff, right? You look at them and you can tell 100% they're designed for women to watch. So
how do you feel about the autumn-spring romance? Lady Ash?
Oh, geez. So I'm actually going to get Harrison to go first because I don't know what that means.
It means he's 55 and she's 18.
Oh, is that what they call it? Okay. So I was fine with it. I didn't mind it at all. It tickled something in me with the whole like fatherly kind of love, but also like you can tell that he's falling over himself for her. I adored that, and like I loved how like at the beginning she was like she did just like sort of see him as like a father figure almost, but like there were like these moments where she's like, oh, his eyes, and you're like, his eyes, and yeah, I adored it. I was completely fine with it.
Look at his big strong hand.
Yeah.
So I also didn't mind it. Like especially since like there's actually just like an in-world kind of cop out for the autumn spring thing, which I found acceptable. So for me it didn't really feel like anyone was taking advantage. Well, if anyone was taking advantage, it was her.
Oh, it was 100% fun.
Yes,
yeah,
it was.
So yeah, like I didn't get the sense that Dag was like a bad guy who was just using her, and I didn't feel like this was like a predatory relationship. So fine by me, like two consenting adults.
He's not really an adult, so
she's 18.
No, she's 17.
Sorry.
No, she's 18.
20, she claims, and
doesn't she
claims
say
to be
she's
20.
17, turning 18?
No, she's 18.
Soon?
Her dad. No, her dad reveals that she's 18.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought it was okay. Yeah.
She was 17 at the time of the
stuff.
The event.
Yeah.
And how do you feel about the setup? Because it's a completely believable setup to me.
Yeah.
She freaks out.
I loved like at the beginning that was like what it was like a little bit difficult for me to get into, like at the beginning where she's not like, you don't really know what's going on, you don't know why she's leaving, and it's kind of like this kind of boring kind of beginning where she's just kind of walking, and it's like, okay, how am I supposed to care about this character? Like, what is supposed to be like, what gets me to latch on to her and like want her to have like a good romance? But like throughout like the book where it starts like revealing everything that happened, I feel so sad for this girl, and like I just like want her to have like everything that she could ever need, and it's just like it was so good, and like the fact that Dag fulfilled all of her needs and everything.
And in fairness to Fawn, she fulfills a lot of needs he has.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's very much a two-sided relationship in a very, I think, organic way, and it felt very believable to me. Even though like I can only kind of understand one side of the relationship. Like I'm not as old as Dag is. And I'm not a straight woman, so like I'm coming in here with like a quarter of the puzzle pieces but they seem to fit just fine.
I mean, in fairness to you, you have at least half the puzzle pieces.
I guess. Yeah.
I mean, you
I
are
mean, I have more hands than Day, right? So I can't relate to him at all.
Yes, I'm sure. Yeah, for sure. You do have more hands. Oh, I had one more question before I did the. Oh, so Kipton asks, what level of gruff are you prepared to accept as attractive?
Why are you
I'm
laughing?
all about gruff. I'm going to be really honest with you. I have never been in a relationship with a man with a college degree, even though I have one. Like
Oh,
I'm blue
okay.
collar all the way. All the men I date.
Get it, Red?
I mean, there's a lot of really good. I dated a plumber. Those guys make bank. It's not like they're losers.
They do.
I just like it. I come from a very blue collar family, and even though, like I said, I have a college degree.
I mean, girls love guys who are good with their hands, right?
We sure do.
Yeah. So
And he's really good with his hands.
he is. He is.
Canonically, yes.
Yeah. I find that the characters that I tend to like the most, and by I find, Harrison points out to me every time, the characters that I tend to like are the like sleazy looking guys.
I mean, I can see that.
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
looking
I
at
know,
Harrison.
right?
Oh,
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
I tend to go like I'm kind of the kind of person that goes for like the villain, right? I love those kinds of
Bad boys? And you
yeah,
like
bad
Dag?
boys. I adored Dag because like
not-
he's not like a bad boy, but like he's not like a rule follower.
True.
He's a real Sigma male.
Like he's
He
very
makes his own way.
Husha. He's just he like Mari tries to tell him what to do a few times, and he's just like, maybe not. And I don't know. I just loved like he falls exactly into the kind of guy that I like.
I don't think he's cocky enough for you, but
I
But
mean,
that's
he
like the
doesn't
one thing he's
need
missing
to
out
be
on.
cocky. Like
He makes up for it.
he makes up
He's-
for it. He does.
he's got quiet confidence.
Yeah.
does.
And like there's a few times where like someone says or does something that he doesn't like, and he, instead of like having any kind of reaction, it says like Fawn looked at his face and couldn't find anything. And I loved that. I was like, yeah, give them nothing. Like that's perfect. 10 out of 10. Do that again. I loved it so much.
For me, I didn't actually find him to be very gruff. Okay, assuming what I think gruff means is accurate. Like when I think of gruff, I think of someone who's like kind of surly and grumpy a lot and has a lot of rough edges. And Dag, like he's quiet, but he's also very emotionally mature. I think for the most part.
He's 50. He's in his mid 50s. I would
Spoilers.
hope he's
Right.
emotionally mature.
I would too. But like he's not like yelling at Fauna like at the beginning. He's like, "Oh, get off my lawn, you heckin' farmer! You're so uneducated, you sheep herder." He's not like Land from Wheel of Time, right? Like he's kind of just like relentlessly nice to her.
I wouldn't call him gruff either. I would call him stern.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he knows how to take charge of a situation.
Yeah, he does.
Without being overbearing. And I don't know. I would call Mary gruff. His aunt is pretty gruff.
Yeah.
But And I love their relationship, by the way. That's just so great.
Oh, it's great. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so now we're going to move into spoilers. So if you've not read this book, I mean, it's a romance. Spoilers aren't terribly important in
You know what's
romances.
going to happen.
But spoilers.
Fawn finds herself unexpectedly pregnant after a seduction. She runs away from home, only to be kidnapped by a Blightbogle's minions to satiate its need for life. She's rescued by Dag, though she certainly participates in the rescue. The Lake Walker, whose people are sworn to destroy all malices, also known as Blightbogles to the farmers. The Lake Walkers take Fawn in to assure that she heals properly. Despite warnings of Lake Walker and farmer pairings and the concerns of beguilement, the two fall in love and must confront the prejudice of both their peoples. Also, some fun, sexy time and a bit of punching.
Well done.
Thank you, thank you.
So what did you think about the magic?
He has such a nice voice.
He does. He does. And it's really
Thank
fun
you.
when his voice is telling you that you're dying.
Oh, right?
What?
Oh, I do miss running the D&D sessions.
Oh.
He killed
Maybe
us
again
all.
one day. I tried.
I think I was there for a
Those-
little bit of it.
Those darn adventurers
Yeah.
managing to survive all the...
I do sometimes imagine you going like this,
Oh, yeah. No,
He
it
does
is.
do
rubbing your
it.
hands back.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so what do you guys think about the magic?
Oh, I really liked the magic. Yeah, it was good. It was exactly as much magic as I think needed to be there. They didn't spend like too much time on it, I don't think. And it was intuitive and it was kind of subtle, and I liked all of that. And what girl doesn't want a man to be reading her emotions at all times? I think that's what women want. I don't know. I can't tell.
No.
I would like it if they could read my emotions, but I don't need it all the time.
I see.
You would like a man.
I can't do it under any circumstances, so
I saw the
true.
funniest thing on
This is
Twitter.
true.
Can you imagine being married to She-Hulk and she gets all big and green and you're like, what? I'm fine. Everything's fine.
I can imagine that.
I can't. One of the other cool things his magic does is it helps him help her along
Yeah.
to
That's
find
true.
her release.
Satisfaction,
as they
yeah.
put it.
Yeah, it does seem like Lake Walkers just have the best sex. Nice for them, I guess.
Sexy magic.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
But there's
Sometimes it
there's
gets
a
so
drawback.
good they get lost.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah, just for days on end.
ground locked.
Ground locked. Yeah.
That was hilarious.
Yeah.
What do you think about the magic, Lady Ash?
I loved it. Like, it was the perfect amount of magic where it seemed like he used a lot of his magic for her and stuff like that, and I liked that a lot. Like, he used it to help her along. He used it to keep her safe a lot of the time, and to read her emotions and give her exactly what she needed in the moment, which is nice. I loved how everything was explained to, like, it leave me confused about any of the subjects, but it gave me enough of information that I wanted to know more, and I'm assuming you get more in the next book. But yeah, I liked it. It was really well done.
I like how they use their magic for healing and for fighting. Like the same exact piece of their magic allows them to heal each other. Like you're first introduced to it when Dag saves, I can't remember the character's name, but his life, because his heart stops, his breathing stops. But then he also uses it to fight the malice the bandit. And how they use it to kind of nudge people. Well, Dag uses it to nudge
Yeah,
people
that was
sometimes.
cool.
And also like how it can, their sense of others can bleed over and just cause chaos in a camp. Like there is a thing
Mhm.
as being too close to people. And
Yep.
they're even closer than like us normals are closer.
Yeah.
And I can imagine that causing some major problems. But
Mhm.
I really enjoy the magic, and you do find out more in the series. This is book 1 of 5, plus there's a short story. And they, eh, yeah. So what do you guys think beguilement is? Because it's not really explained in this book, so I'm just curious what you guys think it is.
Like Lake Walker using their ground sense to influence another's emotions, like in the same way that like he was getting rid of the flies. He can repel flies. He has a mosquito repellent, which is nice for him. But also, like you can also just use it kind of as he was using it to know what someone is looking for at a time, and like to know what their emotional state is at, so you can say the right things and not say the wrong things. Um, so I think it's like a somewhat nuanced phenomenon, and like you could, I guess, make the argument that Dag beguiled her, even if inadvertently. But I could definitely see how a lake walker who is unethical could misuse their magic in this arena.
Oh, I want you guys to read more because I want to tell you what it is. Because I know what it is.
Yeah.
It gave me like very much like kind of just like energy of the world kind of feelings. Like they tap into the energies of like people, of like the planet, of bugs and stuff like that. Like it seemed like they were manipulating stuff like that.
It's kind of like the Force.
Yeah, that very
But yeah,
similar
actually.
vibes. Yeah.
You guys
Yeah.
you guys don't know what beguilement is. I just want you guys to know
Excellent.
that. um, let's see. No, I've kind of already covered that. Is there anything you guys want to talk about? I know there's a couple other things I want to talk about, but Oh, how do you feel about the tone of the dialogue? Like when the characters are talking to each other, because it's very, you can tell the difference between when lake walkers are talking to each other versus when they're talking to farmers versus when farmers are talking to each other. And I don't, at least I can. Did you guys pick up on that? This is why I think she's such
I
a great
could.
writer.
Yeah. Like yeah, no, like lake walkers talking to like farmers like felt very like a parent talking to a child to me. Like it was very not condescending, but like
Farmers have all these social rituals in place to obfuscate, I think, or that ends up obfuscating because they can't read each other's. A lot of games that are played among people, and lake walkers don't really have that.
mhm,
They don't have the ability to do that even. So they can just like see right through it and think it's kind of stupid.
yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Here's the other thing I wanted to talk about. So one of the things I really enjoy about this series is that when you read a lot of romances, the problems that are dealt with are between the couples. Like usually, most commonly, they just don't actually talk to each other, which is
Mm-hmm.
always
Mhm.
infuriating.
Mhm.
The interesting thing that this book does is it tackles the real practical issues of forming a relationship within the relationships you already have. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so like he decides he wants to marry her, announces it at the dinner. This has got to be the most awkward proposal scene ever.
Oh, it was so good.
It was great, but it was super awkward.
Squealed. It was like very, yeah, it was very awkward, but like very like.
Yes, I
It was
agree.
so good. It was so good.
I agree. So then they kind of split off and they're doing this whole divide and conquer thing with all the different relatives.
Yeah.
And then her aunt just sits them down and says, Dag, she's going to be married to us. How do we make sure that she's married to your people? Like, this is the thing that is important for us. And I just love that it's just so much, romance can be very superficial. This is not superficial.
Yes.
Yeah, I loved how it tackled like the merging of their two worlds kind of deal. Like it's a very like it's something like even in our relationship that has been like a struggle is like tackling like how do you be with someone else's family? Like what kind of person do you have to be around them? And I really love how she wrote about it and like how she tackled that whole situation. It was so nice to read.
I mean, I think
such
that's
a different like trouble.
Yeah. Well, I think that's any relationship.
Yeah.
You know, when you're talking about from Dag's point of view, he's like, I don't know this family's dialect. And if you think about it, every family has a dialect.
Yeah.
It gets tricky, especially when the dialect is mostly unspoken.
Yeah.
My family does not talk to each other. So it's tough for her to figure out how to navigate it.
Yeah, I have a very like if you have a problem with someone, then you talk to them about it in that moment, and it usually ends in like a screaming match kind of family. His family is like, there's a problem, we're not going to discuss it
until you just simmer quietly.
Until it like you simmer quietly, and then maybe something will happen up, but usually not. Like it's so awkward. Very different communications, and I understand like it works for them, I think, but it's different.
And see, the thing is that I was married at one point. And entering into first of all, it's even more complicated by the fact that his family is in Illinois. So like I would see them once a year. And that made things really difficult because they had their own thing that was so different than my family's way of relating to each other. Whereas Little Red's family is loud. We're just very loud people. I know that that's probably very hard for our listeners to believe, but we don't yell. We just we talk all the time so much.
Yeah.
And it was really funny because my cousin's husband, who was also my ex is a cop. He's a forest ranger, and they would just like go off in the corner and be very quiet together because they just can't handle it. And I just love that this book deals with that. It makes it more real. Than most romances.
And more relatable. Like you can put yourself in that situation and you can feel what they are feeling. Like I understood Dag's like confusion and his silentness as he like watched and tried to take in this family and tried to understand it. Like I got that on like a deeper level than like you can usually get with romance books.
Also, can we just have a moment to appreciate Aunt Natty? Aunt Nattle? I don't know.
Natty, yeah.
Aunt Natty?
Yeah.
10 out
Oh
of 10.
man, best character in the book for me.
Great auntie.
Is she your favorite?
She was amazing.
She's my favorite. Oh my god, she's amazing. Well, I got a real soft spot for the women that have kind of been through it and know what's up.
And I love
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, what I love about her is that she's blind, and so she actually has some ground sense.
Yeah.
And it makes you realize that the farmers and the landwalkers aren't nearly as far apart as they think. And there's lots of moments that make you realize that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I liked she seemed like at the beginning she kind of like was introduced as like oh, she's like my blind auntie who just kind of sits and does nothing. But like as you read the book, like you really get this sense that she's actually the one who's in charge of the family. Like she actually dictates what's going on and what's happening and how we're living our lives. I loved that. Like it's like such a good trope.
Such a vibe.
Yeah, such
When
a
the-
vibe.
When they're trying to get the everything settled and arranged, it's really funny because Trill says, "Oh no, the fathers are managed by the women. Like we manage them.
Yeah.
They think
Yeah.
they're managing the
Yeah.
marriages." And then they get Clover, who's the older brother's betrothed, on their side by saying,
Beyonce,
"Oh,
yeah.
she just won't be here. You don't have to worry about her anymore." It's so great.
Yeah.
In the
Isn't
next book,
that like the story of human civilization though? Like women let the men think they're in charge.
pretty much.
Yeah.
It's the way of the world.
It's accurate.
Just so you know, in the next book, she goes to the camp. It takes place immediately after this book, and then she has to navigate Lake Walker society. So
nice.
That seemed to be what they were setting up.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, and you get to meet his mother, Dag's mother. She's
alive?
Mhm.
Why did I think she was dead?
I don't know. Dag's 50.
her father's dead, or his father's
Yeah,
dead.
his father's dead. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Maybe it's just
His father
that.
lived to
And then marries.
126. His father lived to 126, implying that
No, his grandfather.
Oh, his grandfather.
Yeah.
I see. Okay. I was thinking like his father's like 70 years old when he had Dag. No, it's okay.
His grandfather lived to 126, and the reason why his father died on patrol,
Right,
because he fell into the river and got pneumonia, or he was rescuing, and then he shared,
Killed himself. Yeah.
he shared, yeah. So that is, by the way, one of the coolest things about the magic system is they use the phrase, "We have to teach the Malices mortality," and so they share their mortality. I just
share death with them.
That's such a good
And I think it illustrates something really beautiful about Lake Walker society. Like they're so there for each other, and it's probably more complicated than that for sure. But like they've also just they just kind of like have that up where they do things for the good of the tribe and the good of the other peoples, right? Killing malices all these years,
right?
Which doesn't seem like the most rewarding of tasks, but.
I mean, but they kind of explain it because they feel responsible for the very existence of malices. What do you think about the role of women in both societies? So you have the women's path in where you go out and patrol, you learn how to patrol, you have kids and stay home, and then you go back out on patrol. But the farmer women, they get married and then they work. Everybody works all the time. This is a very real, very real pioneer style economy, right?
Yep.
Because I have a theory and I want to run it by you guys, and I don't even know if you'll care what my theory is, but I have a theory about
I'm so interested.
Okay. My theory is the Industrial Revolution took away women's economic power. Because those women are weaving, they're making butter, they're doing all this stuff. They're creating real tangible products. And then the Industrial Revolution comes and all of that stuff moves out of the home. So what do you guys think?
I buy it.
This is way afield, but
it's almost Marxist of you.
I'm not a Marxist though, as you know.
I know, yeah. But no, I do agree. I think this happened, and it's not just an economic thing, but the Industrial Revolution didn't impact the spiritual role of women in their communities, but it did, the Christianization of Europe, because before an organized clergy came around, a lot of the spiritual leaders of tribes were women, and they would
Oh,
have
I'm going to
like
disagree with you
herb lore.
there.
Oh, okay. We'll see how it goes. So they had like their herb lore and their, various quote witchcrafts, and with the introduction of an established clergy that was all men, that there was a real tension between these witches, these women, and these priests who would come to the towns. And no, you disagree? Okay, go ahead. You studied religion more than I have.
I did. I'm a theology major.
Yeah.
So what I would say is that one of the things it did is it gave women power over their sexuality. Christianity did. Because before, back the Roman sexuality was all about any man could.
I agree with you here. Yes.
And giving women power over their sexuality was actually a very good thing for women. I mean, there was a lot of bad things about Christianity and women, but there's a lot of bad things about any new thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, you had Saint Jerome petition Roman aristocratic women to come out to live with him, and he actually got quite a few of them, because it turns out it was more attractive to have like an intellectually fulfilling life where you could be somewhat important,
right,
than it was to just be a Roman wife. And like Roman society,
and have to worry about your man bringing home whatever disease from the whorehouse, because that was normal.
So to be clear, what I was specifically referring to was just like the smaller tribal societies that had existed, like in England and in places in Northern Europe, rather than Roman civilization and like the other quote civilized parts.
I mean, I guess, I don't know. I think that that's overblown. Women still have had a lot of power in the church. It just wasn't necessarily part of the straight hierarchy. I mean, there's plenty of very influential women saints.
That's true.
So,
and
including,
we could
and by the way, I did
Joan
my
of Arc
thesis
one, right?
on what? No, I was going to say I did my thesis on feminist theology, images of God as mother in feminist theology. That was my thesis. So I read several influential women theologians for my thesis, and they were all
interesting.
They were all medieval. So
yeah, the role of women in medieval history is vastly understated.
I mean, Isabel and Elizabeth are my two favorite queens. Anyway,
Elizabeth?
This is all way off topic.
No, this is the stuff I live for.
Huron is gonna flip out if he listens
to this. Go on about this for days.
Well, I brought it up because I wanted to bounce the idea off Ash, because I knew you'd take the bait. So, Is there anything else?
Yeah, no, I totally buy it 100%. And alienation from labor. Yep.
No, it's not alien. No, that's not what I meant by taking away their economic power. They're not alienated from their labor. It's that their labor was taken away. Their labor that had economic power was taken away. And they were just left with child rearing, which really doesn't have a whole lot of economic power to it. And caregiving.
Not directly, at least.
Unfortunately.
There's the sense in which you have another person to work on the farm with you, but
yeah. But if you don't have a farm anymore, or there's tractors and you don't have to make the butter, you just go to the store. That's what I meant. So it's not Marxist at all. Okay. Anyway, anything else you guys want to talk about before we start going to quotes?
I appreciated the amount of action in this. I very much cooled on action sequences for the most part in books. I think a lot of them are like gratuitous, and don't like serve really any function to serve the overall narrative besides being something to watch for a bit. But I think they all served purposes here, and they didn't go on too long. And I really appreciated how Dag didn't just murder people for no reason.
I also appreciate that.
Like, yeah, sure, the townsfolk who Sonny and his friends, they were acting up, and they were being kind of little, they weren't being good.
They were dicks.
But yeah.
They were shitheads.
And you know what? The way he dealt with them was great. He set some wasps on them. He didn't just murder them. And I liked that. Yeah, they're not murdering. Yeah, so like they were acting up. They were being terrible. But yeah, that's not a death sentence. Although like it feels like in fantasy, it so often is.
Yeah, like he seemed to deal with them like almost like a camp counselor would deal with some rowdy boys. Like it was like he was putting them in their place, but he wasn't like killing them or maiming them for life, like
or even just like beating them up severely.
Right, like he gave them the consequences to their actions. I really liked how that was written out too.
Yeah, the hornet's nest. I mean, you gotta love it.
Yeah. Yep.
And
Don't
they threw the
fuck
rocks
with Dag.
themselves, didn't they?
Don't fuck with Dag. You won't be able to sit for weeks.
Yeah, a man with a broken arm and no left hand.
Yep.
That was amazing. I think that's all I wanted to say. So let's.
Just on the character of Fawn, I wanted more from her. I wanted more from her in this book. For a lot of it, she kind of felt like nobody. And I get that. I understand why. I don't think it's necessarily a flaw in the writing. I think a lot of it is so you can self-insert.
Yeah, she's a blank slate for you to like put yourself into the place of.
But the character of hers that did show through, I really did. She's just like a really kind person at heart. She is pretty smart. And the way that she just kind of seamlessly incorporated taking care of Dag into her life,
Yeah.
I really liked that. So like, Dag obviously has a disability. It's a meaningful disability. It's not just treated as a prop, which nice. I like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, like she recognizes at some points Dag is going to need her help, and she doesn't make a big deal out of it. It's just kind of something that she incorporates into her life, and she's okay with. You know, she helps him shave. She cuts up a meat for him at some point, and I also really liked how Dag was about it. It can be difficult for people with disabilities to recognize that they need help sometimes, and just like kind of like accept that. And he seemed like he'd already gone through the process of dealing with that. Although maybe this gets explored in later novels. But it was just a nice dynamic that they had set up, I think.
I think it's unfair to say that I understand what you're saying about her character. I think she just comes across as really young.
Maybe.
Yeah, like very impressionable.
And she's been kept in relative ignorance. She can barely read.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to say kept like in a bad way, like it's not malicious. It's just that, you know,
there wasn't time on the farm.
Right. Yeah, there was other stuff going on.
Yeah.
and they didn't obviously have a lot of resources for educating her. I mean, her brothers and parents aren't somehow more educated than her or anything. But I do think that she does have a certain wisdom. So she asks Dag why he wears his hair short. And he says, well, I have so many favors I have to ask people. And I just don't want to ask them to help me with my hair. And she says, are there so few favors to go around? And when
I cried at that part.
When she says that, Dag is like, you know, she's right. I kind of cut myself off to be independent when I could have just said, hey, would someone like to braid my hair? But maybe I noticed things like that because I read the book like, I don't know, this is probably my 4th time.
That is definitely something that comes through. You're right. And a part of that is also like the emotional damage that he has from losing his wife. Right. But yeah, no, presumably he would feel too awkward asking people to be like, hey, can you cut my meat or braid my hair for me?
and
Although
even
I guess
his
he doesn't need his meat cut for him most of the time. But
right. Well, even Mary says that we'll get. I'm ready to move into quotes because this is actually one of my quotes.
Sure.
So Mary is basically calling Dag out and saying, "What are you doing? Why are you getting involved with this girl? And you're so smart about everything." She says, "But you starve your heart. You act like you can draw it in on it forever, and without the debt coming due." So even Mary calls him out on that.
Yep.
he's so damaged, and Fawn can fix him. She can save him.
But my point is that his aunt has said, "Look, you were supposed to make babies. Like that's part of your job in our culture, and you for the last 20 years won't even go home.
Mm-hmm.
You won't even deal with your issues at home." And Mary clearly loves him.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. Got a quote for me, Lady Ash?
Oh, goodness.
You can spend some time looking at it.
Yeah.
I can share one of
Okay.
this is just there was one part of the book that was written.
Okay.
So they're talking about the history of the land, and Dag is telling her what's true and what's false, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, "These were the people who built the straight road after." And then later he says, "Except the division in their society. Except then they bred up for their skills and their senses, and then used their magic to make themselves more magical and lordly and powerful, and so grew away from their kin, which may have been the first mistake." Oh my God, they're living at the same area as the Roman Empire. It has
No, they're not.
fallen. Not like in the non-literal sense, but whatever came before, it sounds a lot like the Romans, right? Like in
A little
medieval
bit,
Europe,
yeah, for sure.
this was a big thing, right? Like places had been very populated and then they were depopulated for various reasons.
Right.
And the people that came to live there were like, wow, these amazing structures were built by people we don't really know much about. The ancient Romans, right? It must have seemed magical to them, right? Like aqueducts that could carry water from a river for miles. Incredible. And they built roads all over the place. So I just really like trying to put myself in the mindset of those people who had, they're living in this area and they don't have the technology ancestors. And like, obviously this has been like an enormous influence on storytelling. It's like probably it's one of the primary reasons why like there are so many mythical beginnings of technologically superior forebears that come along. And
so
I
you're
just like
saying that
here.
aliens built the pyramids, is what you're saying?
That's it. Yeah, there's no other way, right? How could just like people with sleds do it? Right? It's impossible.
Right.
And
yes,
also,
but I get what you're saying.
Yeah, and the Romans specifically, they used to have like a quote. They didn't have an egalitarian society ever, but they used to have an almost egalitarian society, and that was the Republic. And then the Empire came along, and even the first emperor Augustus, he called himself princeps, which is first citizen.
Right.
So he's pretending to be one of them. But as time went on in the Empire, the emperors isolated themselves, and they started aggrandizing themselves, and eventually it became like a huge thing that like the emperors would get introduced like this guy is Lord of the Earth, the favorite child of the sun, or whatever.
Right.
And that kind of felt like that to me.
Do you have a quote for me?
I do, yes. So this is just after, or just as Dag is talking with Mari, and she's trying to get him to see like what he's doing is not good, like with Fawn, and he says, "I'm not sleeping with her," and she says, yet. You've had your ground sense locked down ever since then. Well, that's just partly you. It's such a habit with you. You stay veiled in your sleep. but this. You're like a cat who thinks he's hiding because it's got his head stuck in a sack. And Dag says, mental prophecy. Now there's a farmer concept that could stand to catch on. I loved this. I loved the part like that you're like a cat who thinks he's hiding because he's got his head stuck in a sack. That very much felt like Dag as a character. Like he's like, he's smart, but like he's very like innocently dumb. Like he just doesn't.
Calling him a himbo?
No. I guess not. But he's like very. He's like, yeah, he's a smart guy, but he's just very not. I don't know how to explain it.
He has his blind
I know
spots.
exactly what you're talking about because that was my dad.
Yeah.
He was a lot like that. He was a really, really smart guy. But man, there was just certain things he was so stupid about. Just so dumb.
Like, he seems just like kind of like emotionally like
Stunted?
Like he not stunted, but like maybe damaged is the right word, but like I don't. Yeah, like he's very like he knows things about the world, and like he's aware of like how people are, but like he doesn't understand sometimes like the intricacies of people.
He's very unself-aware.
Yeah.
And so he needs Fawn to save him from that.
Fuck.
I'm teasing. I promise.
You're not teasing.
Okay, so like
that element of it, yes.
it is true, right? Like this is also like part of why I think they're like really good for each other, right? Like they can something to the table if the other lacks, right? That's what good relationships do, right?
Like iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another.
Yes.
Verily.
Exactly.
Yes. It says one man sharpens another, but you know, in this case.
It's okay. I'll forgive you for the.
So I have another quote from the end of the book. And this is Fawn thinking.
You're okay, sweetie.
Doing has no need of wishing. She would do her marriage then, hour by hour, day by day, with the work of her hands, and let the wishing fall where it may. And that's what relationships are like. Day by day.
Yeah, you just do it.
I love that.
I really liked how when they were getting their friendship bracelet braided.
They're magic friendship bracelets.
Yeah,
Ash. Have some respect.
They were looking for ingredients, and like the ingredients weren't like perfect, right? Like it wasn't like set up so that they were having this magical scavenger hunt for their love, right? Like they had to find like some dead milkweed pods. And it's like, this will do. Yeah, it'll be fine. My hair is a bit short. It's not going to braid terribly well, but yeah, we can fix that. We have workarounds. And I really liked how Bujold was willing to write a romance that wasn't like storybook perfect, but it still felt like real and very romantic and nice. And they like Fawn wasn't like demanding a perfect wedding or whatever, but like what they had was what she ended up wanting. It's like somewhere she could stand up in front of the town and be like, I love this man and he loves me.
Right.
That was good enough.
And there's a lot of that in life. You know, where you don't get it exactly the way you want it.
Yeah.
But it's what you got. And you've got to be happy for that.
And
that is my favorite
often the
scene.
important things. The friendship bracelet.
I'm gonna hit you.
It was a really good scene.
It was really good, yeah. And I loved how like as they're putting them together, like putting the bracelet together, and Fawn's wasn't like working properly, and she's like, "Oh, why don't I?" And then just like slices her finger open. And it's like it's just like it's such a good like that's how Fawn's character came across too, like just kind of like makes do with things and like makes it work and well often. And she just like is very quick to like find like an in the moment solution kind of deal.
And the other thing I really like about that scene is there's this one of their magics that we don't learn a whole lot about in this particular book is called making, but the farmers have making too. There's like something when we create something, there's something kind of magical about taking
Mhm.
something like
Absolutely.
glass. I mean,
Like
I
glass.
love the little things like that in this series, those little moments. So
And she brought the glass bowl home to her mom, and the glass was broken, and the Dag fixed it. Well done,
Oh,
Dag.
the scene where it was broken and then Dag was like collecting it and like putting it back together. I Oh, it was so good. Like I was so emotional during that, just like picturing him like on the ground, just kind of nudging pieces together and like trying so hard to put this thing back together because he knew it meant so much to Fawn and to Fawn's mom. It was just
Yeah, you get the sense that this is like the one nice thing Fawn's mom has had in like her entire.
right?
And like Dag just because he cared so much about Fawn, then he cared so much about this thing. It was
Right.
such a good moment.
Yeah. It really is. The one character that we haven't mentioned that is actually probably one of my more favorite characters in the series is Wit. And
Oh, interesting.
he comes back later in the series and he's fabulous. He's so great.
I can buy
Anyway.
that.
And speaking of Fawn's insight, she's having that conversation with her aunt. And she's like, maybe we shouldn't have called Wit half-wit. Maybe that's kind of why he's a jerk all the time.
Yeah.
And they use stupid as a cudgel. Like everybody's calling people stupid all the time. And she calls herself stupid all the time. And it's just
Yeah.
that moment when she thinks, maybe we shouldn't have called him half-wit.
I liked that moment of self-awareness from her. That was really good.
Yeah, it
Because
was.
there are a lot of times when like family dramas where like it feels like you're the one in the right and you're unwilling to see the other side. And I like how she's willing to give ground. And at the same time, like she comes back clearly wanting to be respected, and she doesn't leave until she is, right?
Right.
That was nice.
Well, I mean, how many times have you been in a conversation with your sibling and suddenly you're both 12 again?
Never.
My goodness. Every time I see my sister.
Right? All the time.
I love my sisters dearly, but like I've never had an enemy.
The thing that actually got my sister and I to really start getting along was my mom dying, unfortunately, which is kind of sad.
Oh
I mean, we didn't
goodness.
hate each other,
Uh-huh.
but we never really got along. We knew we had each other's back, but anyway, I still have moments.
On that topic. One of my quotes is on that topic. Fawn found an unexpected ally in Clover, with whom she'd never before much gotten along, and Clover brought Fletch right into line. The two girls were now in great charity with each other, feeling they could have been best friends forever and mistaken in all their fair judgment.
That is such a woman thing. Like
it really is.
It's so woman to be like that. One of my best friends right now, when I first met her, I thought she hated me, so I hated her in response.
Yep.
I found out later.
I was hearing the stories, I can confirm.
I found out later that she just, first of all, she has an RBF. I do too. But like, she's also just kind of like snappy sometimes. And because I interacted with her so little, I took that as her hating me. So I hated her too. And now like she's one of my best friends. I adore her. I would break the sky to make her happy. Like she is wonderful. But like it's such a woman thing. Like to just you make snap judgments and are ruled by for so many years. Like
it's true. It's true.
It's so good. So good.
I think that's all I have for you guys, unless you have something else for me.
Yeah, just one from their snuggle time. He's trying to get her to loosen up. Shh, he soothed, and his thumb crossed her lips, though she had not spoken. Reach for lightness, bright spark. You do not betray your sorrow to set it aside for an hour. It'll be waiting patiently for you to pick it up again on the other side.
Mhm.
I love that part.
And just
So good.
the scene where they're riding into a glass forge and she's sitting across his lap on the horse. And she starts asking all these questions about, she's like,
Yep.
about everything. And he's like,
Yep.
whoa, 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 what is happening right now?
I need
And
to
he's
think
starting-
about something else right now.
Yep, that was so good.
It was so funny. And then he falls off the horse because
Yes.
she puts her hand on his lap and he's aroused.
And it,
I also really like the
so good.
It was so funny. I also just like the scene where he calls the fireflies into their little tree
That was so cute. I love
and
that.
fills them with her
he
hair.
gathered the yeah, that was so good.
Anyway,
This, by the way, this isn't a criticism of the book, but oh my god, Dag feels like he's purpose built for women to fall in love with him.
that's a fair criticism. He is. Well, a certain type
Like-
of woman, anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Like, this is like obviously not everyone attracted to Dag, but like a lot of these things, it feels to me like Lois Bujold was like, I want this in a man. I'm just gonna put this right in here. Oh, and he's done the walking across all of the tribes, and he really could be a leader too. And he's in high social standing, but he's also kind of disconnected with the tribe. So there's an easy way for a woman to just kind of swoop in and sweep him up. And like, this is fine. Like, it's a fine thing, but I find it hilarious.
It's a romance novel thing. And this is
Yeah.
definitely a romance. Her other books, by the way, are not. They have romance in them, but they're not romance novels.
Yeah, Chalian, I haven't read all of it, right? But yeah, he doesn't feel like he's purpose built to be followed.
And interestingly, Paladin of Souls has a character that feels that way. But I can't. I'm just going to keep my mouth shut. But that's my favorite of her books, is Paladin of Souls. So,
Well, Lady Ash was wanting to read the next book.
I'm sorry, you
Finish the
cut out for a
podcast.
second.
Sorry, Lady Ash was wanting to read the next book, Ways, the Sharing Knife, and I told her no, it's a bad idea for the podcast. You might just mix things up in your mind. So now she's reading Curse of Chalian. So
Okay.
I
Well, let me know how
started
you like
reading
it.
But then I was also worried that I would forget some of I would
Beguilement?
forget this book.
Yeah.
So I stopped reading it because I was really
I see.
worried about that. I was really anxious about this.
Oh, you did great.
I-
You did great.
I do have two quotes though,
Okay.
that I really wanted to read. This is also during their sexy time. And he's asks her, light, Dag muttered, hesitating. Light. Farmers are supposed to like it dark, I heard. Leave it on, Fawn whispered, and he smiled and lay back. Skipping a little bit. And she says, I want to look at you. I'm no rose spark. Maybe not, but you make my eyes happy. I loved that. It was so cute. Just such a
And the
good,
next-
like,
Yeah.
yeah. And at
And the
the
next-
end, then,
Oh, sorry.
wait, at the end when, chapter, I think, he says then, I make her eyes happy, and he's obviously never heard fills
and
his heart so good.
Yeah, he's like, I cannot run down the streets screaming.
Yeah.
I make her eyes happy. So good. And
So good.
I mean, after your first sexy time with somebody, that's exactly how you feel.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It just nailed it so perfectly.
Yeah, it did.
I'll clarify after your first good one, right?
Yes.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's fair.
And then the other one is time wears grief smooth like a river stone. The weight will always be there, but it'll stop scraping you raw at the slightest touch. But you have to let the time flow by. You can't rush it. We wear our hair knotted for a year for our losses, and it's not too long a while. That was also a good one.
Yeah. And sometimes it's too short.
Yeah. Yeah.
My dad, on a personal note, my nephew currently owns my dad's old pickup, and I pulled into the driveway today, and I actually literally thought, Dad's home. And I was like, no, he's been dead for 6 years. But I had that reaction just seeing his truck in the driveway.
Yeah.
So.
I vibe with that. I recently, my family lives in another province, and I recently went back and visited them. And in the last 4 years, I lost all of my grandparents, and they all lived out there.
Oh no!
And this last time that I went back to visit my family, I remember like landing, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go visit my nana and granddad. I'm gonna visit my grandma and grandpa, and then it just like. But I'm not visiting them in their home. I'm visiting them in the graveyard.
Yeah.
And it just hurt. Like, it's just like a different kind of hurt.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I hear you. It's part of life though.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. Well, it just is. Okay, on that cheerful note.
Cheerful note? Sorry.
It's my fault. I brought it up. This concludes our episode on Beguilement. Our music is Galactic Damages by Jingle Punks. You can find us on the Legendarium Discord. The invite is in the link on thelegendarium.com. We are also on Twitter at Green Team Pod. Join us in supporting the Legendarium via Patreon, and a shout out to Horizon Brave for starting it all. Thank you to our panelists, Ashaman.
See ya.
And Lady Ash.
Bye.
And for the Green Team, I'm Little Red Book. Until next time, bye.
Oh, am I scary on Discord?
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Not as
What's
scary as
scary
Kip.
about me? Interesting.
You just are spoiling for a fight like half the time.
Oh,
No,
I see.
he's like that in real life too. That's.
I'm sure he is.
Yeah.
I 100%
I'm
believe that.
I'm spoiling for discussions.
Yeah.
That's what I'm spoiling for.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't see it that way.
I was gonna
Really?
say he likes to think that he just wants to have debates. He says, "I'm not arguing, I'm debating." But no, it's a fight. This is an argument.
Don't see it that way. I don't see it that way,
Yeah.
but I know that a lot of people do see it that way.
Have people,
In
people
fact,
come complaining to
including
you?
somebody else I have a DM with, and they're like, "Does Ash hate me?" I'm like, I don't think so.
Okay,
I don't.
but like I get a lot of people asking me that, and like, so does Harrison hate me? Does Harrison hate me?
Really? This is so wild.